Now, a high-stakes meeting on the future of Greenland. Vice President J.D. Vance and Secretary of State Marco Rubio, they're meeting with their Danish and Greenlandic counterparts as President Donald Trump pushes to acquire the island. Posting earlier today, Trump says that the U.S. needs Greenland for national security. It is vital for the Golden Dome that is being built, and that, quote, NATO becomes far more formidable and effective with Greenland in the hands of the United States. The U.S. could pay $700 billion to buy the 800,000 square mile island from Denmark. This is according to three people familiar with the White House's estimate. But Greenland and Denmark say the island is not for sale. NBC News senior White House correspondent Garrett Haake joins me now. So, Garrett, the White House says, look, this is about protecting the U.S. and Europe from China and Russia from expanding their influence in the North Atlantic. So what do we know about the meeting that's happened so far and where everyone stands? Are they still dug into their positions?
Well, Vicki, it appears that this meeting may have just concluded. There are photos beginning to surface of the delegation from Greenland and Denmark departing the White House. If that's the case, they were only there for about an hour and a half, a relatively short meeting given the stakes involved, with Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State / National Security Advisor, and Vice President J.D. Vance on the other side of the table. Vance has kind of been the administration's point person on Greenland, even traveling there last year to make a point about this. Notably, Vicki, he traveled to a U.S. military base on the island, and that's really at the crux of all of this. The Greenlanders and the Danes say the U.S. already has a presence in Greenland. They're welcome to see it expand, but they don't want to sell, and they don't want to be part of the United States. So that price tag that you mentioned, the $700 billion estimate, is a high figure, and one that could potentially go higher. As anyone familiar with real estate knows, your numbers got to go up if you're trying to buy something that the other party's not interested in selling.
Welcome to the video, everyone. This is Justin Paul. Doing a reaction here to all the new news that I've collected, coming, from the U.S.'s intentions on purchasing Greenland from Denmark, and doesn't look like Greenland or Denmark is looking to agree to any terms of that nature. They've had delegates that come over here to the United States and meet with J.D. Vance and Marco Rubio at the White House, and it seems that they just didn't see eye to eye as far as what Vance and Rubio were trying to propose to them as far as a purchase. And we do know that Trump does want Greenland. He says it's for national security. They're building a Golden Dome, which I do have to do more research on. And we do know that there's a lot of stuff over in Greenland that is being used as far as military wise, for some of our fighter jets and stuff like that. So that's just a little bit of information that we do know. And also, President Trump doesn't want Greenland to fall into the hands of Russia or China. And he doesn't want an increased presence of Russia and China in that area, because that is one of the things that is considered a national security threat to the United States if those countries get more of a foothold into that area. So very interesting stuff. Apparently we do have military bases there in Greenland, and I also have a clip coming up here where Germany is set to send troops over to Greenland. So, I mean, there's a lot going on here with this whole Greenland thing.
That is a very fair point, Garrett. We also understand Denmark is increasing its military presence in and around Greenland. They're also now doing more exercises with NATO allies. So if the president chooses to try to take the island in some way, are there discussions right now about potentially involving the U.S. military?
I think that's probably unlikely at this point. Vicki, I say this because the president, while he has said this could happen the hard way or the easy way, there's been no indication of any kind of U.S. military buildup in the region. And there's no indication that the Danes want to have a fight over this. These exercises may be more focused on showing the United States that Denmark and Greenland can be good and effective partners in security, as they have been for many years, and that this doesn't require a United States takeover of any kind. If there were to be some kind of conflict, conflict. The Danish military is a tiny fraction of the size of the United States. The Danes, ironically, depend a great deal on the protection of NATO, the protection of the United States. A lot of outside analysts are saying if this comes to conflict, or even if it comes to an aggressive move by the U.S. to take over Greenland, it could be the end of that alliance as we know it.
Well, Garrett Hake, we appreciate.
Yeah, I feel like that would threaten the whole alliance within NATO, because these are countries that participate in NATO, and one of the things with NATO is cooperation and working together. So if it becomes to a point where it's the United States military against like the Danish military, and then like I said, Germany is getting into it. It's a lot of European countries who don't agree with the whole U.S. purchasing Greenland thing. Let's see here. So let's go to this clip here.
We, the Kingdom of Denmark, continue to believe that also the long-term security of Greenland can be ensured inside the current framework, the 1951 agreement on the defense of Greenland, as well as the NATO treaty. For us, ideas that would not respect territorial integrity of the Kingdom of Denmark and the right of self-determination of the Greenlandic people are, of course, totally unacceptable. And we therefore still have a fundamental disagreement, but we also agree to disagree. And therefore we will, however, continue to talk. We have decided to form a high-level working group to explore if we can find a common way forward. There's clearly a disagreement. We agreed that it makes sense to try to sit down on a high level to explore whether there is possibilities to accommodate the concerns of the President, while we at the same time respect the red lines of the Kingdom of Denmark. So this is the work we will start. Whether that is doable, I don't know. I hope, and I would like to express that it could take, down the temperature. It is, of course, very emotional for all of us, and of course, particularly for people living up in Greenland, but also for people in Denmark.
I think it's very important to say it again, that how important it is from our side to strengthen our cooperation with the United States, but that doesn't mean that we want to be owned by the United States. We are allies. We are friends. We have been cooperated in many, many years. We have history together. So it's all our interest to find the right balances.
Yeah, so,
the
they're
Kingdom
basically saying, of course, they had a meeting with the United States. They agreed to disagree, and they're both reiterating that, they don't want to be owned by the United States. So, two parties that are not able to, fully agree on what's going on with Greenland.
This is DW News. Welcome to the show. I'm Nicole Fröhlich. Germany has announced it will send troops to Greenland for the first time, along with other European countries. It's part of measures to boost defense on the Arctic island, as U.S. President Donald Trump insists the Danish territory is essential for U.S. national security. The announcement came after Denmark's and Greenland's foreign ministers held inconclusive talks in Washington with U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance and Secretary of State Marco Rubio. The Danish foreign minister, Lars Løkke Rasmussen, said the two sides had agreed to create a working group to discuss ways to address American security concerns while also respecting Denmark's red lines.
Yeah, and let's go to this clip here.
Danish officials are saying a fundamental disagreement over Greenland continues to remain with the White House after talks with Vice President J.D. Vance and Secretary of State Mark Rubio. This comes as President Trump continues to threaten to take over the country.
The Trump administration insists it needs Greenland for national security. ABC's Christiane Cordero reports from Washington.
As it faces escalating threats from the U.S. to take over Greenland, today officials from Denmark and Greenland at the White House meeting with Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Vice President J.D. Vance. Greenland's prime minister is echoing his nation's repeated stance that they would rather remain part of Denmark, as they have for hundreds of years. President Trump, defiant.
That's their problem. That's their problem. I disagree with him. I don't know who he is, don't know anything about him, but that's going to be a big problem for him.
Trump insists the U.S. needs Greenland for national security, suggesting China and Russia could take the island themselves. Danish officials point to new investments and a willingness to work with the U.S. through NATO to protect the island.
For me, it's important that the Greenlanders know, and they know this by the deeds, not only by the words, that we respect the wishes of the Greenlanders and their interests, and that they can count on us.
Some Greenlanders are skeptical, many more upset.
It will happen. The United States will try to buy Greenland, or they will invade it. They have anger, they're very upset, they're frightened.
Several European leaders are backing Greenland's sovereignty, while some U.S. senators warn a U.S. takeover would be the end of NATO. Christiane Cordero, ABC News, Washington.
So yeah, there you have it. A lot of people are saying that, if the United States does indeed try to take over Greenland, it could be the end of NATO. U.S. being one of the biggest members of NATO, and we'll just have to see, what comes of this. Doesn't sound like all the people in Greenland agree with this whole, purchasing of Greenland. And as we see here, the people who are sent out to speak for this area, they're not agreeing with it either. But we'll just see, what moves Trump wants to do as far as trying to acquire Greenland, or what happens there, and how all this new military presence within this area affects his decisions as far as wanting to acquire Greenland. But I'm gonna go ahead and close out until more information drops and more news drops on if they come to an agreement or not, and we'll just see how this progresses. But if you like my content, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. This is Justin Paul. Peace.